Hi there, Anthony, and everyone at Acupuncture Ambassadors. This is Sarica House. And Anthony, I wanted to contact you. You and I had discussed a little bit via email the concept of traditional Chinese medicine married with traditional food preparation techniques. And you were wondering if maybe there would be a broader audience to this information. And so I just wanted to submit this video to you. And if you feel that it is something that's good to share, then please do so. You can probably just edit off this first portion of what I'm going to say. As relates to traditional Chinese medicine, there are really so many wonderful foundational theories, and one of my absolute favorites is this concept of the MingMen fire. And what the MingMen fire is if you can just consider something like a little crackling fire that's in our lower belly, down in our pelvis. What that is that's a heat source, an energy source for so many functions throughout our body. As I'm going to relate it to digestion, it is something that you can consider as being the heat that is the energy that's cooking something in a cauldron, and that cauldron actually falls into the belly area of our bodies. So that sort of relates to the spleen, stomach, pancreas function. And this MingMen fire, in modern biomedical terms, we could probably relate that to our kidney adrenal function. And as we're all pretty well aware, the concept of adrenal burnout is widely known. It's something that seems to be part and parcel with modern living, from the way that many of us are working well beyond 40-hour work weeks. We're carrying life commitments, job commitments. We're consuming caffeine, we're eating poorly, we're eating on the run, we're not getting enough sleep, we're drinking too much alcohol. All of these factors and many more, they actually put quite a taxation on the body's kidney adrenal function. And so if you can take that modern concept and plug that in to this concept of a MingMen fire, you can imagine then that this fire in most of us is quite depleted. And as it would be if you were cooking something on the stove, if that fire is really low, it's not going to properly cook the foods that are in the pot that's on the stove. It's going to take a really long time, and things are going to get a different texture than you want them to be. And so what I'm here to share is a concept that actually harkens back to our ancestors and to the ancestry of traditional Chinese medicine, for that matter. And this is a concept of traditional food preparation techniques. And in modern times, we have really gotten away from these techniques in our rush to hurry and just get foods on the go, without much of a consideration about the sourcing of what's in those foods, much less the way that they're prepared. And so one of the wonderful concepts as it relates to traditional food preparation techniques is actually something that when we look at some different ways of cooking, it involves actually a pre-digestion of foods. And so one way to consider this is through the media of fermenting and culturing. And most of us are very familiar with yogurt, kefir, maybe sauerkraut. All of these types of foods are foods that friendly bacteria, friendly yeast, have acted on the carbohydrate substrate of those foods. So the dairy or the cabbage, or it could be some other kind of vegetable, anything with a carbohydrate source. That becomes the fuel for these friendly bacteria and yeast that are in these foods. And what these little bacteria and yeast do is they consume the carbohydrates, and the process of doing so, they create a food that we then consume that is much more digestible, that the carbohydrates have been reduced in those foods, that are much richer in B vitamins, much richer in enzymes, much richer in gut healing probiotics. And so the use of culturing and fermentation is a way that we can have this pre-digested food that allows us to get nutrition without putting undue stress on an already taxed kidney adrenal MingMen fire system. Another way of a pre-digestion technique is the use of soaking and sprouting. And soaking and sprouting, that can relate to grains, to nuts, to seeds, to legumes. And it's a very important thing that really most of us are not doing this, but most of us are consuming lots of foods that are not pre-digested in this manner. And the issue with this lies in the fact that these types of foods are actually very hard in their structure generally. And in the bran of these foods, or the outer coating of these foods, there are different components that if we had multiple stomachs, as say a cow does, a ruminant, we would be able to digest these foods better. But in fact we don't. We actually have a rather simple digestive system relative to the size of our brains. And so for us to function optimally at a cellular level, certainly supporting our brain function, what we need to do then is we need to make sure that we are pre-digesting these foods so that we are getting the most nutrition out of them that we can. And so this pre-digestion as relates to these types of foods is just taking a warm water media. Maybe you could add a little bit of live active cultures to it, some yogurt, you could even use a little lemon juice. And then let these foods soak. I like to do it for at least 24 hours. And in doing so, the outer bran begins to break down, and you get enzymatic activity, again, that is transformational of these foods, making them so much easier to digest, and actually a very nutritious food, as opposed to something that can be quite harmful to us in the way that most of us are consuming it today. And to be honest, we're seeing the result of that. And so this is a way for people to start bringing foods that maybe were forbidden to them back into their diet by way of using these pre-digestion techniques. And again, when these foods are consumed, what happens is we're able to get the nutrition without putting more undue stress on the MingMen fire, our kidney adrenal system. And then finally, one of the last traditional food preparation techniques that I teach on and that we use daily in our home is making a bone broth using grass-fed meats. You could also use wild-caught fish. You could use pastured chicken or turkey. But the use of bone broths is something that has happened in kitchens and over hearths for eons. And it's a way to take the cast-off parts of the food that we're consuming. So most people like muscle cuts, and what gets thrown away is the bones and usually the organs as well in modern times. And these are such warehouses of nutrition. And when you take these cast-off parts and you put them into a hot water media, maybe with a little bit of vinegar to break down the mineral composition in the bone, what ends up happening is the nutrition that's in these tissues, it goes into the solution and it makes these components incredibly bioavailable. And so a bone broth is rich in gelatin, which is a very easily digested protein, very healing to the gut. They're also very rich in glucosamine, chondroitin, which people pay plenty of money for, for healing their joint tissue. Also incredibly rich in collagen for the skin health and also the integrity of all the tissues in our body for that matter. Also very rich in the marrow that is in those bones. And in Chinese medicine we have a concept of if something is weak, you want to consume that food. In animal form possibly. And so in this manner, these bones, they become a little bit brittle, they break open, some of that marrow goes into the solution itself, and that helps to nourish the brain, to nourish our own tissues deep within us. And so as you can see, using some of these traditional food preparation techniques, these are ways that we can drive incredible nutrition into our bodies. Without a lot of effort, honestly. It just takes some pre-preparation and getting into the rhythm of doing these types of things. And in turn, we're able to get more nutrition without, again, taxing this MingMen fire that in so many of us is really quite depleted. We all could use a little bit more help this way. And so hopefully this will inspire you to make some of these changes in your own kitchen, to search out for foods you know, at the grocery store, or, you know, even at a restaurant, that maybe use some of these methodologies. If you have any questions, you can feel free to contact me. My name is Sarica Cernahouse, and I'm a licensed acupuncturist and practitioner of traditional Chinese medicine practicing in Arizona. And my website is naturallylivingtoday.com. But there are many, many websites that are out there that really help to support this information. So bon appetit, I wish you well, and good luck.